All right, welcome back to Sip the Talent Films. I'm your host, Coach Evans, and today we have a special guest. And I'm going to read off some accomplishments before we get into who it is. And you see him on the screen already. A Super Bowl winner, 353 catches, 5,137 yards, 33 total touchdowns. He was a second-round pick by the Minnesota Vikings in the 1993 draft. Played for the Vikings from 1993 to 1996, the Miami Dolphins in 1997, the New Orleans Saints in 1998, one of my favorite cities, the Baltimore Ravens from 1999 to 2001, and finished his career in Indianapolis in 2002. Super Bowl winner for the Baltimore Ravens, Qadry Ismail. Appreciate you for joining us.
Appreciate you having me on, Coach.
Now, you've played with a number of quarterbacks in your time in the NFL. Jim McMahon, Warren Moon, Dan Marino, a 38-year-old Randall Cunningham, and you ended it with Peyton Manning. What did you take from those guys playing with all those great quarterbacks?
Well, I could say each one of them had something that was common. This innate desire to win, and they were all great leaders. I think Jim McMahon was on the downside of his career, but he still had that spark in him. That was actually my first NFL touchdown, was a throw from Jim McMahon, and he was just a gamer. With Warren Moon, you had a man who was just incredibly talented and never threw a bad ball ever. Like, every throw was a tight spiral. And he was just simply amazing. I think, his mindset of, he had that, big bass baritone type voice. So, you'd have to really listen in to when he was calling a play in the huddle, or else you wouldn't be able to hear it all. But he was just a pro's pro, really, really awesome professional. Then, I kind of went through my wilderness experience where Miami, I didn't really have a chance to really play with Dan Marino. It was more along the lines of me on the if there was a practice squad back then, I guess I would have considered my year in Miami and my year in New Orleans both practice squad type years. I had to learn how to be a pro. I had to learn, if I want to play in this game, there's a certain way you got to, approach it. There's a certain way you got to be and act and all the things. With that said, Dan, there's no greater arm talent than Dan Marino. He was the show, and, so goes the Miami Dolphins. So went Dan Marino. I think when I looked at my time, in Baltimore, Randall Cunningham, I wish he actually – we had Elvis Gerbach, who was a free agent that was signed after our Super Bowl year. And I think for Randall, he still had it. I mean, every bit of it. But I think it was interesting. I think he was content with, if I play, I play. And I'm going to play extremely well. If I don't play, cool. I'll be a backup that is going to, give my starter, in that particular case, Elvis, opportunity to flourish and give him whatever insights I have, that I see on the sideline. But overall, it was interesting because in my mind, I thought, there was a point in time where Brian Billick, our head coach, I thought he would have given him the nod to start because Elvis was struggling a little bit, and I think it would have been phenomenal to see, what Randall would have been able to do. But nonetheless, I think for Randall, he and I in training camp, what I remember most about him was just all the stories of, him handling or not necessarily handling in the right way the successes or the challenges of superstardom in Philadelphia, and just his way in which he transformed himself. This is Randall Cunningham and commercials to big old billboards, everything. I mean, he had his own TV show. Warren Moon had his own TV show too, but Randall, he was just so charismatic. And at the junction where he and I were able to hang in, especially like I said during training camp, he was just such a humble, different man. And I loved how he cherished his family and his time with his inner circle of people. And then I think with Peyton was young, up and coming. Peyton, for his mindset, it was like I've never seen a more cerebral, like peel back every layer that you can peel back when it comes to diagnosing a play, a defense, a specific player, a positional understanding on the field, situational awareness times a zillion. And that was Peyton Manning. Leave no stone unturned. Really admired the way he approached the game. Just fantastic. And actually, you clearly see him in so many, television commercials and partnerships that he's had over the years with, different corporations. And you see that personality come out in the locker room as well. And he was he was born to play quarterback and do all the quarterback type things as far as being a leader and just leading men, and he knew how to do it. And I really valued my time with him as well.
It's funny that you said that about Peyton, because I'm recently reading a book by Bruce Arians, and I'm at the point where he talked about coaching Peyton, and he talked about some of those things where he had to like help Peyton with his social life because everything was football, football, football. He had to kind of like coax him on like taking girls on a date and doing different other things. Because like you said, he peeled back every layer with football. So in his mind, it was football and nothing else. So it's funny that you said that, and I'm at that point in the book, so I can kind of see that about Peyton Manning, and it paid off over the years from it. To piggyback one more thing about those quarterbacks, which one of those guys were the most demanding? And what I mean by demanding, I don't mean like a rah-rah in your face person, but just holding you accountable to being where you say you're going to be and doing what you say you're going to do. Like which one of those guys were on you the most to and I want to say maybe to push you to succeed, but they know that would be beneficial to them if they pushed you to be where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, I would clearly say Peyton would top the list, but real like close behind was Warren Moon. And Warren didn't really have to say much. Warren, he was Warren Moon at that time, and shoot, he was like, all right, bet. What do you want me to do? But he had a different command of the offense than Peyton. Peyton, I think, he was chasing it. Warren, clearly, however many times I think 5 times, Grey Cup winner of the CFL. Obviously, he was more than established when he was down in Houston. So when he got to Minnesota, I mean, at that time he was, old, from a quarterback standpoint. He was like in his late 30s, which, nowadays that's, no big deal. But Warren, for us as a receiving group, me as a young receiver, it was like, yo, Warren Moon, I better not mess up, and yeah, he definitely would hold you accountable. He wasn't not a yeller at all, but you just knew. I think Peyton was more along the lines of, you're going to have a dialogue with him, and it's not. And I was a veteran at that time, so I didn't really mind having conversations with him, and it wasn't anything negative ever. I think that was one of the cool things about Peyton. Peyton, he just wanted to win. It wasn't even about the ego or hey, you got to do whatever. No, he was. And if he did get it in with somebody and they had words, like he'd be the first guy to like, all right, calmer heads, got to prevail. He'd be the first guy to go right back and try to square things away, make sure everybody's on the same page.
Now you played with some good receivers, Chris Carter, Marvin Harrison, and you grew up with one too. From all the guys that you played with, Who would be that guy? And if it's the brother too, you could put him in there. That would amaze you in practice all the time. You'd be like, man, like wow. Like, who would wow you from a receiver standpoint?
So I mean, yeah, like talent of the art of the catch was Chris Carter. He had unusually larger hands, but his catch radius, he would do one hand catches like, yeah, this is me. Yeah, this is what I do. His presence as far as just where he was at on the field, his ability to get 2 feet in bounds, all those things, that was Chris. I think from a consistency standpoint of practice and just like work ethic and make phenomenal catches, like just routine. Obviously it was Marvin Harrison. I mean, that dude, whoo, he was special. Like I've never seen anybody, just make it look easy, but you knew he was a hard worker. We have the synthetic gloves that now is ubiquitous in all the receiving rooms across the college and pro landscape. I mean, it's just what it is. Oh, I gotta get my gloves, and I totally get it because I was one of those guys. Like back at Syracuse, Newman was the only real glove company,
solid color
with the big old N on it. Yeah, on it. And everybody was like, oh, you got gloves, you got gloves. And it was like this, like, mark of you can't catch or something. Like, why would you not want to give yourself every advantage that you could possibly give yourself? And I think, that was the stupidity of other players who didn't fully understand the advantage of having gloves. And so technology being technology, like nowadays, like I said, guys will literally go out to practice. That's just a part of their uniform now. It's no big deal. Marvin Harrison, literally for 3/4 of the practice, would be a no glove guy, and just he would snatch the ball out of the air like it was just like yeah, whatever. And it was just his routine. Like he didn't care, and but his work ethic and the way he went about his business was second to none. I had tremendous amount of respect for him. A guy who may not be known in many circles, but definitely down in South Florida, he's known. Great teammate, great consistency of showing up and catching and just route running from the slot is OJ McDuffie. Penn State guy, came out the same year I did. He was a Dolphins legend, and like, my God, man, you talk about just it didn't matter where it was just at, and like, it was funny because Marvin was fast for sure, but you had Chris and OJ, like, OJ just wasn't fast, but I swear to you, it didn't matter. Dude was always open and always in the right spot. Always catching the ball. Always. Never did you see him not catch it. Never did you see him, be lazy in practice, take a practice off. None of that. Like, just a pro's pro. Like OJ, yeah, he was amazing. Shout out to my big dog, Jake Reed. He was my running mate. So we had a 3 wide receiver offense.
Grambling, correct?
Say again.
Jake's went to Grambling, correct?
Yeah, Jake went to Grambling. Yeah, absolutely. He literally, like, he was the master of the skinny post. The skinny post, and literally, it's like it's over. Take it to the house, But Jake was a really just reliable, intermediate to deep threat receiver. Like, he just was a really good dude. And off the field, like great locker room dude. Just awesome, awesome, awesome. But yeah, Jake was another guy that I really held in high regards too. But yeah, the receiving core, just in general, really, I felt like in my career, I had some guys that, we all were competitive, all wanted to, get the ball all the time. And, I could see where, people call us divas because, we are. And, it's you're out there on an island, you're only getting it thrown to you. However, if you got an average of 65 plays and you're only getting, at the most, if you are one of those top level guys and the quarterback gets a hot hand or something, you might get 10. You're like, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, all those other plays,
Blocking.
you sitting there blocking or you running somebody else off and you're like, I need the ball.
Yeah.
So those 3 or 4 times you get it, you're like, I need it more. So, yeah.
You mentioned Syracuse a minute ago. What was the the hardest thing from college to pro for you specifically?
I think the time I spent at Syracuse was really invaluable because we had some really good receivers there that I learned from, Rob Moore and Rob Carpenter. Those are 2 guys. Rob Carpenter played a few years with the Jets, but Rob Moore, he was technically considered a first-round pick, and he declared for the NFL, and they did a supplemental draft, and he was the first player taken by the Jets as well. And so he was, 6'4", 2. At that time, anything over 200 was considered big. So I think he was like 213, 215. Just his vertical, easy 44, 45 inches. Like he could have played basketball. He was from Hempstead, New York. And I remember as a senior in high school, we played against, we took a recruiting trip up to Syracuse from Pennsylvania. I was in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, Myers High School. So up in Wilkes-Barre, we would go up to different, games and check them out and all that. Penn State, Maryland, Rutgers, all the schools in that little northeast corridor. Well, we took a trip up to Syracuse and, we were sitting there and we were watching against, Penn State. And at that time, Syracuse was undefeated. I think Penn State might have been as well. And Syracuse that day put a whooping on them. And the first play or third play from scrimmage, Rob Moore, it was a play action, and Rob Moore gets it. He just blew by. The DB fell down. The safety was caught flat-footed, and Rob scored. And the dome was so deafening, and it was one of the awesomest experiences that I had witnessed. I was like, I'm going to Syracuse. But with that said, I think him coming back, talking about, the league, talking about what you need to do. And so when I got to the league, I think, I was already fast. So I already knew I was like, it didn't matter. Like the speed of the game was the speed of the game. But I think the nuance of the game was really difficult for me to wrap my brain around, as far as coverages, getting open consistently. A lot of that comes from practice. A lot of that comes from your off-season training. I didn't have really a full grasp of truly, just understanding how to train in the off-season. My first 2.5 years, I just didn't know what I didn't know. But I figured it out real quick. But I would say, just there's a lot more nuances in the pro game than there is in the college game. And I think the speed of the game, depending upon who you are, like I said, the speed of the game never really bothered me because I was already fast. But if you can understand nuances, then you'd be able to thrive in the league.
Speaking of nuance, and I'm glad you kind of transitioned into it for me. A lot of people think playing receiver is simply you run the route that's drawn on the board or the sheet or whatever, and you catch the ball. Can you explain to me and whoever's listening to us when we put this out, what makes a receiver and a quarterback have to do post snap adjustments? And can explain, like, draw a scenario where you and the quarterback have to be on the same page with a post snap read?
Yeah, so there's a couple of plays that instantly come to mind. So the double move is a play that for my career, you mentioned the 33 touchdowns, should have been more. Some of it was my fault, but for sure, I think a good majority of them came off of double moves. And so, what is a double move? That means that you'll go and line up, whether you're in the slot or whether you're outside, you'll line up and basically you're going to give the illusion that you're going to run a short or an intermediate route. And the defensive back, judging by the way you run your route, you give a tell, you give it away and say, oh, this is what he's going to do. And then sure enough, you keep on going, you take off. So it's a double move, or it's a takeoff, or it's a stutter go. Sometimes they'll call it a sluggo. There are a variety of names for it in the modern game, but it's an extremely valuable tool for aggressive defensive back. So a wide receiver, from a nuance aspect of things, I'll say we were playing up against the Detroit Lions, Ryan O'Neal. He was a draft guy in my draft class from the U. And I think Ryan might have been either a late first round or early second round pick as well for the Detroit Lions. And so Ryan, very savvy corner, tall, lanky, good arms, can transition really well, read, the different routes of the receiver. And so we are in a tight ball game, and sure enough, it's third down. And so the play call comes into the huddle, and I'm listening, and Warren is saying, all right, everybody, we're going to do, I think it was double right. So this is how I know how I do it, double right. And so immediately I put up, my hand indicating that I'm going to the right. Double is the strong receiver side, not the tight end side. So I was a Z receiver. I would go to the tight end side, but in double, that's the two receiver side. So there's two receivers. So in today's game, they would say, well, it's still 2x2, just the way the tight ends in today's games play. But back then it was 2x1. So double right, he would call out the protection, double right, scat right. I think it was train right, 383 Z takeoff. And so we had a blend of the Don Coryell system, whereas it was the numbers, 383 meant something. But we also had a blend of the Washington Redskins, and we had a little sprinkling of what the West Coast offense was about, a little bit. But the 383 was tagged, since it's me as the single receiver. I know I have the 3. The 8 is going to be the double or the slot receiver. And then the other 3 is going to be the X receiver. And they'll tag the Y. So it might have been Y drag, Y shallow, Y stick. Could have, if it's a different protection, he might have stayed in. So then you going out, and now I got Ryan coming out. And so what I just did, you're practicing it. You're going over it in the different meetings. You're taking your copious amounts of notes. So you just know, all right, double right, scat right, 383, Y stick on 3, ready to go. Boom, Z takeoff. Oh, okay, he tagged me. So now, as opposed to me just doing a normal 3 route, I got a tag, and I got to know, all right, I'm looking at the sticks. It's 3rd and 8. Okay, cool. If it's 3rd and 8, now I'm looking in, and I'm seeing what the coverage looks like. And so I see Ryan coming over, and I just look at them going to Chris Carter and Jake Reed's side. So I'm like, all right, I'm by myself. You're assimilating all that information, and now here's Ryan and I. And now I get this wry smile across my face as I'm looking in at Warren call the snap, because now I'm like, all right, the entire game, when I came in as the third receiver and I do my route, Ryan was quick to jump on me. All right, bet. Mental note. So now we just literally need this first down, keep the drive alive. If we score, we're going to put ourselves in great position to win. Barry Sanders is about to get back out on the field. We don't want him to go crazy, although Tony Dungy, our defense coordinator, and our defense was really, really good in containing Barry, which is another story for another day. But I'm sitting there, and all these things are happening, and it's like, yep, I'm about to do a takeoff on you, but I got to sell it. I went up and ran the ugliest 3 route because I raised up, which is a no football 101 as receiver.
In your chest.
I turned my head all just like, oh, look, I'm going to the sideline. I'm going for an out route. You better stop me. Oh, darn it. Look, it's third down. You know it's an intermediate route that we have to have. So Ryan, being aggressive, boom, he goes ahead and he just undercuts me. Mm-hmm. And then he took the cheese, set the trap, boom, I took off, and now it's just looking back for the ball. Technically, Warren underthrew it, which allowed Ryan to catch up a little bit. So as I'm catching it, I'm running backwards for maybe, it seemed like it was 20 yards, but I'm sure if you look back at the tape, right, it only been like 3 or 2.5 or something. But wound up going ahead and being tackled in the end zone. We get the game-winning field goal, or no, extra point, game-winning extra point, and we wound up winning that game. That play, I can describe throughout my career how many different other times I've had plays like that. And so it's the ability to hear the play, understand it, but then also know that what is it that you have to do to be successful on this play? And it's not always just some clean, generic white line or black line that indicates on a white sheet of paper, oh, this is a curl. This is a takeoff.
Right.
Like, there's so much in the details. A good coach will help a receiver understand those details, or a receiver has that already kind of built in him. They'll figure out those nuances, and they collaborate with the coach and with his other teammates to make themselves a complete receiver as far as route running.
And that's what I really want the viewers to know, that it's a lot more that goes into it than just running a basic and catching the ball and maybe getting some yak. It's a lot goes into guys up on those run plays. That's when you work on your releases. That's when you give them different looks. And that's when you can kind of lie to the DB too. That way, when you do have that double move, you can give him that lie. When he bites on it, like you said, you can, produce a big play, because you're not going to get a lot of opportunities. Like you said, on a hot day, you're going to get maybe 10. So you best make the best out of your 3 to 6, opportunities that you get. But moving on to the 2024 Ravens. And I know you've watched all the games and whatnot. What is your biggest takeaway from the 2024 Ravens?
Yeah, great success and mega disappointment letdown. I think the great success is finding the second year of a Todd Monken, Lamar Jackson synergistic offense, realizing that the great signing in the offseason of Derrick Henry came to be, and it was a huge success. The way in which the defense was able to grow under Zach Orr as the defensive coordinator. And I think the awesomeness of it all is the utter failure to advance to the AFC Championship game by what transpired in the Bills game. And so you know, you look at windows in the league, and not many can sustain just levels of excellence. Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, uh, you know, you can sort of throw Phillip Rivers in there, although he didn't really necessarily sustain as far as championships, but um, you know, sort of, kind of Eli Manning, big time Ben Roethlisberger. You know, those guys in that 2000s, 2010s into current day, Aaron Rodgers, you know, that era of football, just of sustained quarterbacking. Man, you know, that right there. But for the window to close, it's weird because you just never know, and then all of a sudden it just shuts. And then you're on the outside looking in, whether it be injury, whether it be salary cap, whether it be whatever. You got to take advantage of it. And I think, unfortunately, you know, this is one of those years. That 2024 Ravens team it's a regret that you're going to look back on and say you could have, but you just didn't get it done.
Just to piggyback off what you said, my biggest thing was, and now I haven't been like the greatest support of John, but I haven't been the greatest deterrer either, because being in the same profession, you really don't want to down coaches, because I hate seeing coaches get fired unless they just do something egregious. But my biggest thing was to start off 0-2, the way we started off 0-2, and then to be in the position we were in the playoffs. That, to me, was a big plus in my book for John, because that team could have imploded after that loss to the Raiders.
Yes.
And to come back and have almost to be the number 2 seed if a few things would have fell right, and to be the hottest team in the NFL leading into the playoffs, which I think that's pretty much the goal of everybody, to be ascending going into the playoffs. Lamar Jackson, this will be my last question for you. John said something, I think it was the beginning of last year, that Lamar could potentially be the best quarterback ever. I think a lot of people thought he was blowing smoke. But Lamar he adds something to his game each year. Do you see him being, or potentially being, that what John said? Do you think that's sustainable?
Yes, I think to be the greatest to ever do it, you know, Patrick Mahomes right now is chasing Tom Brady. And if he gets 3 in a row, and they were in 3 of the last 5, and he's went to 7 consecutive AFC Championship games, like that, to me, you know, we're looking at, you know, the Raven Nation, the flock is looking at, dang, every time we get to the divisional round, it's like, and then we finally get to the AFC Championship game, it's like, you get these like just let down disappointments. And I think, you know, that's something where, you know, overall legacy, bigger picture legacy, you know, right now, this era, it's Patrick Mahomes and everybody else. And I think that person on the top of the everybody else quote is it has to be Lamar Jackson. He can do what others cannot. He can, you know, just extend plays, and now with, you know, going to be in his 3rd year with Todd Monken, I'm anxious to see what the next iteration of the offense is going to look like. But yeah, man, that dude is special as special can be. And I think that's where it's challenging for us as fans, because we're watching this greatness, yet, you know, we want to see the dividends, like, you know, the Kansas City Chiefs are saying. I mean, it should be 7 straight AFC Championship games of, okay, God, we got to see it again. It's the Ravens and the Chiefs again. You know, but we don't. We're not seeing it. You know, I think that's the whether it be Joe Burrow or whether it be, you know, the Josh Allen Buffalo Bills, you know, whomever, you know, it's always somebody but the Baltimore Ravens. And I think coaching, you're absolutely right. I think John has done a phenomenal job of really, having a strong understanding of how to, motivate the team. But there's always something there that, you look at that they're missing. And I would say him, McDermott up in Buffalo, and Tomlin over in Pittsburgh, all of them have to bow their knee to Andy Reid. And,
Mm-hmm.
they all have great quarterbacks. They all have tremendous successes, but for whatever the reason, they don't do what Andy Reid does. And take it however you will, but that's the reality.
And so, with that being said, I appreciate you for taking some time out of your day to talk to us and explaining the different nuances of your life, your football career, and your takeaway from this 2024 Baltimore Ravens. So, from the Sip the Tally family to Q, thank you again. I appreciate you for joining us. If you have something coming up, can you let the viewers know what you got coming up? Because I see you on different Ravens podcasts. So, if you have something individually you got going on, let the people know about it.
Yeah, I'm in my office here, and missile training is what I do as far as human movement and sports performance. And so check me out on missiletraining.com to interact with me if you want to get some understanding on how to move better. If you're a person that's non-athletic, we can help you as far as your movement. If you're an athlete, depending upon the level of peewee all the way on up to professional, doesn't matter the sport, we can help you and get you in a great space. At the same time, I am frequently on WJZ. This is going to be year number 8 for me, doing a variety of the different Purple shows that we do. And I'm consistently on Purple Pregame during the season. But then podcast-wise, yeah, you can check me out on Locked On Ravens, which you'll see me and Kevin Ostreicher break down a lot of Raven content each and every week. So lots of fun things that I am grateful and very passionate about. And yeah, that is my resume and my elevator talk.
Okay. I appreciate you. And now that we've broken the ice between you and I, hopefully we'll have you on more on and we can maybe throw some film up and talk about different nuances of the receiver position, because that's my favorite position. That's what I coached in high school for a long time. And you played it on a high level. So just to be able to get some knowledge from you, I think I'm a lifetime learner, and I'll be willing to learn because I may touch the grass again. But with that being said, man, I appreciate y'all for coming out. Y'all could have been anywhere in the world, but y'all chose to be here with us, not just me this time. And we'll catch y'all on the next one. Peace and love.